Hey there, guys, it's Phil, and I'm here with another random thought. And they come pretty randomly, right? I got so busy, guys, as soon as I wanted to start this series that I was supposed to do like every Sunday, that it's incredible, like how busy I got. Which is good. Which leads me to what I want to randomly think about, which is Brazil a country still worth coming to live? I mean, to visit, I think Brazil will always be a country that people will want to visit. I just saw some data about how Rio experienced like one of its biggest tourism years, like this year. So, yeah, people are always going to come to Brazil. But is it worth living here? Is it worth investing here? Is it worth putting in the hard work to come here? I think so. I think it still is, especially now that it like the country's kind of in this weird moment where things are not too up or too down. I think it's a good time to come down, having that foreknowledge, so understanding that things may not get off the ground as quickly as you'd want it to, but it's a good time to like lay the groundwork to possibly build off of that in the future, and realizing that in Brazil, I mean, the country's already really split social class wise. There's a very rich and a very poor. And when we have these moments of stagnation and, possible recession, but stagnation for sure, that gap widens. So if you're coming down here to do business, that means you have to pay attention to the fact that your clientele now, you got to really specialize to get like the right clientele for whatever it is that you want. So that leaves you with maybe not as wide of a net, but a very specialized, like maybe this is like harpoon season, right? You can't just cast your net out like you could a few years ago and just get every client you want from every segment, rich, middle class, even some folks that don't have as much money, man, they're paying. Let's have English class. Let's have this. Let's have that. Let's invest in a restaurant. Let's, you know, do business abroad, whatever. There's many ways that you can make money in Brazil that aren't just teaching English. I mentioned teaching English because that's probably what most expats do when they come down here. um, so it's not like that. You're not going to get that wide net, but if you specialize, man, if you specialize, to work just with lawyers, or, and again, I'm going into the English thing. If you specialize to work just with kids or this, and then if you're able to, in your specialization, kind of have multiple sources of income where you can work with these different types of people and you can kind of create a through line that connects your mind, because it can get wacky if you're like going from teaching kids to teaching like bank executives. If you can get that through line, that's great. And then if you're dealing with other industries, mostly, there's expats that come down here for import, export. Again, that net is not that wide, but if you're able to sell yourself to the right client, and you're probably going to get those high end clients that are surviving, because that's the thing too, when you're having these economic crises, a lot of them, kind of mid businesses get cut out, which is not a good thing, by the way. That's not good. But, if you're playing the money game, you're going after who's left, and who's left are probably those companies and those business people who are overachieving, who are figuring out how to wiggle in and out of all these ups and downs, who are able to work with international clients, regardless of where you come from. So there's opportunity there because you're like kind of honing in on those people. So if you're coming down here to live, and you're in that work mindset, got to work a little bit harder. You got to really, hone in on what you really want to do. But once you hone in, man, you're like the person that does that. It's great. And Brazil, what is it? It's like 1% of the population speaks English, which again, that reflects not just on people that are coming down here to do business in, teach English classes, but also do business and try to get people into their own market, their home markets and stuff like that, or bring some knowledge from abroad down here, etc. Um, it that means it's like it's only 1%, so there's a lot of growth potential there, right? There's a lot of growth potential there. So even if you're working with interpreters, you can find a way to get yourself into the market, man. Um, it's a good time, but you gotta work, you gotta work. Um, and again, good time. Let me go back a little bit. Good time, but you may not see like the fruits of your labor until maybe next year, or maybe even the year after. But if you're looking to build and wait a little bit and invest, it may be a good time. Um, if you're coming down here for retirement reasons, then yeah, the dollar's still strong, and you'll live like a king or a queen out, wherever you want to live. I would suggest, leaving the big cities because they are expensive, and you'll see that money drain, even if it's in foreign currency. But if you're not having any other source of income, you will feel the drain. But if you can live a little bit, outside of the main poles, that would be Sao Paulo, Rio, Curitiba, Salvador to an extent. You'll see that your money is going to go further, and you'll have more peace of mind, tranquility, even higher levels of safety if you're in some of these cities in the interior or on the coast. So, yeah, for a retiree, of course, Brazil I think is always going to be a good option. There's a lot to choose from as far as terrain. If you like it cold, if you like it hot, if you like the mountains, the sea, the desert, even, there's so much to choose from here. So it's a great getaway. You always got to deal with the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy never ends. But hey, that's Brazil. What are you gonna do? And yeah, we have talked a lot about violence on my podcast, the Brazil Expat Journal. Listen in. Um, but again, depends on where you live. You can kind of get away from it. It's a really big country, guys. And inside that country, there are really big cities and really big states. So yeah, you can. It's almost like if you thinking about it, like anybody that's from England, for example, there's a major war going on, like really close to you. But at the same time, is it? Like you go about your daily goings on because you don't really feel the effects of what's going on. Or somebody in the U.S., when there's a natural disaster, we feel it in our heart. Who didn't feel it when Katrina happened, and and the various hurricanes in Florida? But if I'm in New Jersey, like I feel it. Or actually, I was in New Jersey when 9/11 happened. I was in New York, like, was it the next weekend? I forgot, but I had already planned to go to New York, so I was there. When I was in New York, I felt it for sure. But even in New Jersey, I mean, there was a collective sadness, but it didn't physically affect me anyway. Like I could walk outside the door, and you know, I would be okay. So always remember that. When we're talking about all these crime stats, they're localized. A lot of them. There are states that are very poor. There are cities that are very poor and very dangerous. There's places that are totally run by criminal factions on both sides. Okay, and people are caught in the middle. You can avoid that. So if you're thinking of coming down here for retirement, and I say all of this, guys, because stuff up in the northern hemisphere is getting really weird. It's getting interesting too. If anybody's following, the kind of these splinter groups. I'm really into politics. I don't talk politics too much on my own channel, but the Brazil Expat Journal, I should say. But when I get a chance here on the Random Thoughts, I put a few little things out there. And one thing that's really interesting for me at the moment is the splintering, of the left and the right. And you see that there's definitely the progressive left, which is a little bit more left, and then these guys that are considering themselves like the normies, and they're kind of like splintering from them. And then on the right, there's the MAGA folk, which was already kind of a splinter of traditional Republican, but they kind of merge. But then there's these folks that are leaving that, for various reasons, and they're becoming their own little entity. Funnily, what's uniting them is their hatred for Netanyahu and some current Israeli policies and Zionism and all of that stuff, which in no way means anti-Jew. All right, let's get that straight. Zionism is just a philosophy. It's something that I can believe in or not, even as a non-Jew. And then there's Okay, but that seems to have united these two splinter groups, and it's interesting because it's creating this new. I hope it continues to create this new dynamic, which is not left versus right, but us versus them, which was what I always think everything is. And the whole left right divide is more manufactured than real because most people you meet in your day to day life, they're a mixed bag of beliefs. And, most of them just want to go to wherever they gotta go in the morning, come back, enjoy their life, and like not get in anybody's way and not have anybody get in their ways. And you have, weed smokers that support gun rights and gun right folks that maybe are pro-abortion, whatever. Like people are a mixed bag, and there's a lot of this that's manufactured, this divide. And I like these splinterings because it kind of is showing the true face of the enemy, which is all these elites up here, which are both from the left and the right. So it's a really interesting time, but it's also a really scary time because I'm listening to people that I never thought I'd listen to before. Podcasters I really didn't like at all, and now I'm like, okay, all right, they're kind of making sense because they're splitting from talking points versions of themselves and the whole independent media scenario. But as we unmask, and it's stuff that for those of us, especially on the left, and I give the left credit, they were ahead of the game on a lot of this stuff, whether it's the 9/11 stuff, whether it's Snowden, they were the ones, kind of hammering that down. And finally, conservatives or some conservatives are starting to come around and say, oh, okay, they had a point with some of these things. But it just makes it kind of scary because I'm like, it's like something that's beyond, it's beyond Trump, it's beyond Biden, it's beyond Obama, like whatever's controlling everything that's going on in the northern hemisphere right now, from the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the interests that want to keep that going for whatever nefarious reason that is. Because I think you'd want to like kind of do everything possible to end a conflict and not just keep it going. And every day that keeps going is possibilities. That's, imagine if somebody made them, when those missiles were going over Moscow, and like, what if there's a malfunction? What, even if it's like not even human error, just mechanical error, like, and it's World War III, like that's a real possibility. I don't get why people don't see that that's a real possibility, and are scared shitless of that fact. I would think that people would be really scared of that fact. But that war keeps going, and there's definitely political interests that want to keep that war going, and the conflicts in the Middle East, and what happened to Palestine, and what's going to continue to happen to Palestine, and which is horrible, 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 horrible. But there are definitely political interests that want to keep that going, and again, it's another situation where, man, anything could pop off at any moment, so that could, that October 7th was horrendous. But you start reading up on it and you realize, man, who was really involved. I don't want to get into that, but that was a catalyst for what we had happen in Palestine. Imagine if something worse than what happened on October 7th. Is it 7th or is it 9th, people? I'm sorry, but it was horrendous what happened. I don't want to see anybody dying. 1,000 people, innocent people, like that's tragic. Um, but what's to say another thing like that can't happen that won't be a catalyst for something else? Like every and their interests that seem to want stuff like that to keep happening, these endless conflicts. But the thing is, man, we're playing with fire. Like we're playing in a nuclear age. It's one thing to have these little war games, these forever war games back in the 1950s or whatever, North Korea, Vietnam, when we weren't dealing with actual world ending ammunition. And I say all that to say that, man, that's why I'm more than happy to stay here in Brazil. I do love the country, so it's not like by demand or whatever, or without a choice, I should say. But part of it, especially in the last few years, is just the mess that the Northern Hemisphere is showing itself to be in. From Epstein and all the, possible ties he had to foreign agencies and spy agencies, and how much control people like him. I say people like him because I don't think he's the only person that has a lot of these blackmail type files on politicians, and they're able to control them and kind of move the needle where they want the needle to be moved, and kind of corrupt politicians, and just really switch up who they were, during their campaign versus who they become after they're elected. And I know you've all seen it. You've all seen the switch, and it's sometimes subtle, it's sometimes hard, but it happens to all of them, and it always seems to happen relating to foreign policy. It happened to Obama, man. Remember, Obama was about shut down Guantanamo Bay and get out of these wars and hope and peace, and boom, he continued. Like, there's that famous meme I always liked sharing at the time, which was Bush, 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 and then his face melds into Obama. Because for me, it's like, when it comes to foreign policy, like, Obama won the Nobel Peace Prize while he was bombing like Syria and Libya. It was drone attacks. It was kinetic military action. They used to call it, to say it wasn't war. But man, what happened? Who got to him? Right? And we're seeing that with Trump. Trump, that was the no war president. And that's a fact. 2016 Trump, there were no new wars. I mean, there was continuation of what Bush had started, or Bush Jr., Bush Sr., yeah, one wonders. But, all of a sudden we're bombing Iran on the behest of a foreign nation. What's going on? So, we see this flip, and it's scary, and it shows how people could be so co-opted. We think that these politicians that you elect are actually true to their word, and then how easily that changed. We saw that with Epstein. All of a sudden, the stacks of files. Oh no, there's nothing. It was on my desk, but now it's not. What happened, right? And that's it. But the thing is this: if you're just like, your mentality is just, oh, Trump, evil Trump, Epstein, and that's it. And you can't see how, no, it's everybody. In the same way, if you're here and you're like, Obama, F Obama, Obama Hussein, whatever, you miss the message, because it's everybody, and I see that the new media landscape is waking people up a little bit more to that. And these are not like the Alex Jones of the world. These are big names in the media landscape who have more viewers, more listeners than the legacy media, CNN, Fox, etc. They wish they had the numbers that these people are having, that are just YouTubers now and are completely independent. It's an interesting time to live in, but like I said, it's scary, and that's why for me, I'd be out of there, man. I would be out, as far south as possible, down here in Brazil, or even further south, Uruguay. It seems to be a really nice place to live in. I don't know much about Argentina. Argentina seems up and down, even though I'm wearing kind of Argentinian colors today. But there's a lot to explore down here. Some countries a little bit, dangerous, unstable. In other countries like Brazil, just kind of always just somebody through history. It's never seems to be completely stable, but never seems to be completely off the rails. I don't know. Another way to describe Brazil. So I think that's why it's the number one option down here. A lot of people do come here, and you can make some, moolah, some money down here. So that's my message. Random thought. Escape the U.S. nuclear war. Seems to be on the horizon every other day, which is really scary. And just the hatred that people have, and political assassinations, gun massacres here, blah, there. I'm like, wow. Just like, I can't deal with it. I can't deal with it. There's definitely a cooler vibe south of the border, even though people here can get emotional too, but it seems to always kind of end in pizza. And in the U.S., it seems to always end in bullets. So I'll go for the crappy Brazilian pizza, and it really is crappy, unless you're in São Paulo. Over some stray bullets. Anyway, guys, that's my message. Like and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to try to get a lot more content on here for you guys, including some movie reviews, get back into that. I've been watching a lot of cool series. And eventually just life stuff, because I'm doing a transition, professional transition, and I'd like to share with you some of the stuff that's going on, and hopefully I'll be less tired because look at this tired face, man. But yesterday was a long day. Yeah, it was a very long day to the point where I told my boss, and I got to talk to you today about some of the stuff that happened yesterday. So it's tough to keep up with the virtual versus the real. Although they're all one and the same. So, I'm trying to find that balance. Anyway, guys, till next time, peace out.